Good morning, everyone. Appreciate you joining us this morning. Welcome to the Fast Forward webinar series sponsored by the Infinity Workforce Solutions. My name is Steve Kessler, and I'm going to host the program today. We certainly appreciate all of you joining us. I know it's difficult to get away for an hour, but we do thank you all for joining us this morning. We've got a really, I believe, interesting program this morning. It's one that we've had quite a lot of requests for. So we're going to speak today about, transitioning students, from regular ed buses. And I think it's a process that has created a lot of questions. So we've brought in our expert today to talk with us a little bit about that. Hey, by the way, while y'all are there, why don't you jump on the chat and let us know who you are and where you're from, so we can kind of know who's out there. And also wanted to let you know that if you have a question during the presentation, to either type it in the chat box or go ahead and put it into the Q&A box that you have available there. So while y'all are doing that, let me introduce our guest today. Our guest today is Mr. Cody Cox. Cody is Director of Transportation, Fleet Custodial Services, and Facility Usage for Cleveland ISD in Cleveland, Texas. Cody's been in school operations for 16 years across various districts in Texas. Currently, Cody oversees the operations for one of the fastest growing districts in the state, and they have a daily ridership of 10,000 students and over 200 vehicles. Cody's very active, serves and teaches at many state associations in Texas. And I'm going to describe these because we have a lot of folks not from Texas. So Cody is a member of the Texas Association of School Business Officials, part of the Texas Association of School Boards, the Texas Association of School Administrators. He's part of the Gulf Coast Association of Pupil Transportation. And I believe TEMA is the Texas Energy Managers Association, if I'm not mistaken. So with all that said, please welcome Mr. Cody Cox. Cody, I'm going to turn it over to you, sir.
Hey, good morning, everybody. I'm reading through the chat, so it looks like we got a lot of people from Texas on here. So we'll go ahead and get right into it. If you have questions, I'm sure you will. Go ahead and feel free to put them in the chat. We'll come back to those at the end. That way that we don't have to speak about things multiple times to respect everybody's time. So today, as you know, like I said, we're going to speak about moving students and making them successful with the least restrictive environment. Again, that is law. And so a lot of times we have a tendency to, just do what we've always done. And a lot of this has come up in recent years, especially in my school district, because everybody's having a financial crisis, right? Everybody's budgets are being cut. It's like 2008 all over again. And so when we're looking at different things, well, special needs transportation is the most restrictive environment you can possibly give a student when it comes to transportation. And it's also the most expensive way to provide transportation, especially if you're outsourcing transportation. So if you are outsourcing transportation for your students that are on IEPs or ARDS, then that's even more expensive. So we'll go ahead and move forward with the presentation. Give me just a second. It's let's see here. Is it gonna go? There it goes. Okay. So Steve already introduced me, so we'll go ahead and skip that slide. There it goes. We'll go. Okay, so why are students on special trans typically? So we have a list here, and I apologize if I'm not looking directly into the camera. I have to see both screens. So we have medically fragile students, right? So that's one reason that we put students on a special trans bus. Orthopedic impairments, wheelchairs, 504. So a 504 is a temporary disability, right? And so that's not something that we're going to keep a student on there for long term. Needs that cannot be met on the regular ed bus. So it could be behavior needs. It could be things like, as we speak further down, where you have child safety restraint systems, things like that. Now, yes, you could provide that on the large bus. So depending on your operation. In my district, there's no way. We run multiple tiers. All of our drivers do 3 routes or 4 routes back to back. We don't have time to be pulling a car seat off of a seat so a regular ed student can sit in that seat. We don't have time for that. And so some districts you might have that. If you're a smaller district and you still operate 1 tier, then you can do that, right? Because that's the only child that sits in that seat. Another thing is guardian wants. So you'll see a little asterisk next to a few of these. The asterisk is that a lot of times this is where we get caught up in. And in our district, we get caught up in this a lot. Well, the mom wants it, or dad wants it, or guardian wants it. Well, why do they really want it? And so I believe in using examples and stories to teach. And so I'll tell you, here recently we had a situation where mom did not want her child on the special needs bus, but that's what they thought she wanted. And so when we had the ARD meeting, and again, in my district, we're a fairly large district, we don't have a transportation representative at every ARD. It's just or IEP. Sorry for those of you that are not from Texas. IEP and ARD are the same thing. We don't have enough staff to do that. And so that's came down to us, and it came down to my supervisor that oversees special trans, is that, well, when we contacted mom was like, well, I don't want her on the special trans bus. Matter of fact, her sister is younger and she needs to be on the big bus to help her sister get on and off the bus. So that raised a red flag for us. And we were like, okay, let's do a little digging. Well, it was the simple fact that mom was talking about wanting a seatbelt. Okay, so mom was talking about wanting a seatbelt in the ARD in the IEP meeting, and the DIAG just put down, okay, special trans. And so that's where it goes into training your staff. So we have a meeting every year with in our district, we have what we call APOs, Assistant Principals of Operation. It's a position that we created, and so that is a go-to person for everybody in operations. So my people in transportation, my custodial supervisors, my child nutrition supervisors, they all have one person at the campus to go to. And so that what's really good about that is that's the person that sits in there. So we're able to have trainings with them that, hey guys, our buses all have safety belts on them. Okay, so in Texas, that law came into effect in 2017, and we're very fortunate in our district that we only have a few buses that we own that no longer have seat belts. Okay, most of our route buses are all 2017 or newer. Not everybody has that, right? But that's where we want to work with our special needs department and say, well, if we need a seat belt, okay, great. So before we got to that point, we would move our fleet around, right? And so if that child in that bus needs a seatbelt and other buses don't have it, well, am I going to put that child on a special trans bus, which is the most restrictive environment, or am I just going to move my fleet around and make sure that we can put a bus on that route that has a seatbelt? So you've solved a lot of issues there. You didn't create an additional cost for the district by just moving buses around. And so we come across that a lot, where what the guardian wants is what we always do. And so we've had to teach our ARD facilitators and our APO principals that it's not about that. They need to actually be diagnosed. They need to actually be verified that they need to be on that bus. And so in our district, our special transportation director, she has made a list. And so we do have a lady, we have several layers in our district, and we have a lady that's the director of SPED, and she helps with that function of it. And she has made a list that you have to triage the students. So if mom wants them to be, or guardian wants them to be on special trans, do they check all these boxes, right? So it's evaluating the situation with the child. Do they really need to be on that special trans bus, or are we just putting them on there because we feel like that? That's what they need. Behavior concerns. That's always a big hot topic for me, is behavior concerns. I don't know how many times in my career I have went and looked at a child's behavior on the bus, and we haven't had any issues. So Cody does great on the bus. We don't have any issues with Cody on the bus, but he has a horrible behavior record in the school. Well, it's because the school's making him do something he don't want to do, right? And so that happens a lot. And so just kind of tips and tricks is make sure you're checking that. So we have a rule that we will never ARD a child to special transfer behavior unless we have data to support that. So if they've come in from another district, as you know, you have to, by law, we have to uphold their IEP, their ARD from the previous district. But that doesn't mean we can't quickly set up a meeting and have them reevaluated. And so we will talk to the bus driver if we're moving them from regular ed to special trans. Let's talk to the current bus driver. How's the student been? We're going to pull up their profile. Have they had a bunch of bus referrals? If they haven't had a bunch of bus referrals, then we're not putting them on special trans because of behavior. That's a campus-based concern, but it's not a bus-based concern. And so it's, again, giving the people access. And so our APOs have access to all the bus referrals. Again, that's why we made that position. That position has access to the things they need to know, so they can do their own research and triage. Group supervision, right? So in every district I've been in, I always put my foot down. We're not going to do individual supervision. So that's one of the boxes you're checking when you're doing IEPs, right? And you're justifying why they need to be on a special trans bus. A lot of times, the only thing that you're checking is group supervision. If you guys really look at their transportation supplements, almost every district I've been in, and I've been in 8 districts, it's always, well, they have group supervision marked. Group supervision means there has to be a second adult present, right? It's not just the bus driver. Well, we can accommodate group supervision on the big bus. You can, it can be done, right? It's just another adult. And so it's not always ideal, right? And so in my district, we do have monitors on big buses, not every big bus by any means, guys, but we have them. And when we need to move someone, so for example, we will go to a ARD and we'll say, well, this child's been doing really well because we've got our staff trained where they're going to reach out to a transportation special needs supervisor and say, how has Cody been doing? How's he been doing? His ARD's coming up. Can you give me a brief on how he's been doing? Obviously, we have our students that we know are going to be on special trans their whole entire career with us, right? But we have those ones that can progress out of it. The ones that can progress out of it, we get our special needs supervisor. She goes through and she looks at their history and she says, well, they're doing pretty good. Okay, so then what we do is we say, okay, well, we're going to merge them. So we're actually not going to change their accommodations. We're going to have the big bus come get them instead of the special needs bus. And we're not changing anything on their IEP, guys, because we're going to put a monitor on that bus. We have a handful of monitors that we kind of rotate around. We're going to say, okay, bus 1 now needs a monitor, and we're going to help that child, right? So it's kind of like being a life skills student, even though these students are not all life skills. We're going to help them get to that point where they can be independent. And so we're going to do a 6-month trial period with that monitor on the bus. The monitor is going to give us feedback. The driver is going to give feedback. And then we're going to go back to ARD committee. When we go back to ARD committee, IEP, when we go back to IEP, then that's when we're going to have a conversation. Okay, well, they've been successful on the big bus, right? There's no law that says they have to be on a special trans bus. There's no such thing as a special trans bus. A bus is a bus is a bus. We call it a special trans bus because it's a wheelchair adaptive bus, right? Many school district runs special trans buses that don't even have a wheelchair lift. Okay, and so again, we can still meet their accommodations on the big bus, and we can get them off of that special trans bus. And really, that's the right thing to do for the child, right? We're preparing them for life. We're preparing them to ride the metro. We're preparing them to be independent. And so that's another thing that we always work on. Another reason that students are on special trans buses is if we have to administer medication. In my district, we will not administer medication on a large bus unless the student is able to do it by themselves. So on a regular ed mainstream bus, we will not administer medication. We only administer medication on the special trans bus unless it's medication the child can do on their own, EpiPens, things like that. Obviously, we're going to allow that to be on the large bus, but anything rectally, and there's some districts that don't do those at all. We do. We have a very vast group of students that have vast needs. If we just said we weren't going to administer any medications on any bus, we'd have a lot of issues there. And so we do have plenty of students that need to have those medications administered rectally or orally when they're not able to cognitively do it themselves. And then HVAC, this is another one always gets me. So other states may not have this, but in Texas, most of us have air conditioning on all of our buses. And so when I did an audit this summer, I sat down with our special ed director that focuses mostly on the transition and transportation piece of our district. And, and I was like, Shannon, why are we checking the box of HVAC needing on all these buses? We don't own a bus in this district that doesn't have air conditioning. Even our spare buses have air conditioning. We literally do not own one that does not have air conditioning. So that's no longer a thing. We shouldn't be putting children on special needs bus because they need air conditioning. Okay. And so that's just something to look at, just tips and tricks. And then we already talked about child safety restraint systems. Okay. So again, like I said, if you can meet the needs, I've been in really small districts. I've been in really big districts. Cleveland's a medium-sized district, in my opinion. Some people would call it large. I've been in districts with, 700-800 buses. And so, with us having close to 200, to me, that's medium, but we just don't have the flexibility. I've been in districts where I had 30-40 buses and we had the flexibility. We could put a safety seat on a regular ed bus, no problem. Okay. Sorry, guys, this computer. So least restrictive environment, I'm sure you guys know that law. So it's part of IDEA. The SPED bus is the most restrictive environment. If I don't know if you guys can click on that or not, I had hyperlinked idea of the law into the LRE. So later on, if you want the presentation, you're more than welcome to email me and I'll send it to you. And remember, we're promoting inclusion. If we give students the ability to grow, they will succeed in the future, right? So that's kind of the background of idea, is that we need to make sure we're including the students. You know, we've moved on from the days where we segregate everybody out. And so we need to promote inclusion. We need to promote least restrictive environment. And we just need to make sure that we're really always thinking about what's best for the student. I can tell you there's been many a times that I've sat in meetings and we're just going to be professional and consistent, and we're going to be backed up with data. And it's not always what the guardian wants. You know, the guardian sometimes will, you know, you ever heard of Munchausen syndrome? Sometimes we disable our own students. You know, a lot of times as parents, you know, I'm a parent of three. I have three kids, you know, and of course you want to baby your own child. You think you're helping and protecting them. And that's where, as a district, sometimes we need to help those parents see, well, you're actually not helping them, right? Okay, so the evaluation process, I kind of got off track and we talked about that a little bit. But why do students really need to be on special trans? You know, there's a lot of times. So I can tell you in our district, we have taken 406 students to date this year and transitioned them to the big bus. 406 bus riders have went from special trans to regular. And it's two reasons, guys. One, it's the right thing to do for the kids. You know, don't get me wrong. There are going to be some kids, like with anything we do, there's going to be some kids that might find their way back on a special trans bus because it just didn't work out, right? But 406 kids, like, I'm actually proud of that. And so it was interesting when Steve reached out and said, hey, do you want to talk about it? Because we've kind of been one of the forefront people on this. And, you know, I'm very proud of our team and what we've done to help these students. And then the other thing is we've seen a significant cost reduction. And so we're one of the fastest growing districts in the state. I just looked yesterday at our board meeting. We've surpassed the 2,000 mark. We've added over 2,000 students this year, and we're bringing the number down. So we've added over 2,000 students, and we've cut 2 entire sped runs. And in my district, when you cut 2 runs, that's 2 buses. That's 3 and 4 runs. So, I mean, that's not just one route. All of my buses serve 3 and 4 schools, morning and afternoon. And then we also run late buses. Most of our routes run till 7:30 in the afternoon. And so, just things to think about. And then we talked about that already. Students' profile for discipline. That's big, guys. So again, the way they act in school, I can tell you for a fact, like when I was a bus driver, so a little bit of background about me. I started out as a bus driver when I was 18. I never had problems with my kids, but I'd always get told by the teacher, oh, you know, so-and-so is having a real bad day today. I'm like, okay, well, bring it on. And he gets on the bus, sits down, we cool, right? It's because it's a different environment, guys. And so it's always important to look at that. And then, is the student mainstreamed in school? That's another thing we look at. So when I first came to this district, we were having all these complaints, especially from our secondary schools, our high schools, our 9th grade campuses, our middle schools, that, well, the sped bus keeps leaving this kid, right? They keep leaving Cody. And, well, you know, okay, well, how are they leaving Cody when Cody gets walked out with his peers? Well, Cody doesn't get walked out with his peers. Cody is a mainstream student. Well, okay, so he's in regular classes, and most of y'all know it's kind of an industry standard and practice that, you know, the special needs students come out a few minutes before the bell rings. They put them on the bus, make sure they get situated. So, you know, in our district, we have large schools. If we let the special ed kiddos come out the same time as regular ed kiddos, man, we'd have mass chaos, because, you know, we load like 3,000 kids at our high school all at one time in a 7-minute window. And so we figure out, okay, well, why is Cody not coming out with his peers? You know, well, it's because Cody's mainstream. Cody's coming out with the big bus riders. So then you have to ask yourself, okay, well, why is he on the special trans bus? Oh, well, it's because he just always has been, and he used to have special ed services. And so, again, just tips and tricks. I would highly encourage you to audit your special trans riders. I don't know how many kids, and I don't have the number, but it was several that have been dismissed from special ed services within the district, but nobody ever updated their information. You say, well, how did you continue to get a supplement every year? In my district, we require a supplement. If you want something changed in the beginning of the school year, they better have an updated supplement. We're not routing a child from last year's supplement. That's not happening. And if you really want to get down to the nitty and gritty, we're not talking about that today, but you're breaking the law because you're going to request for Medicaid reimbursement. And if you're not, you should be for those kids. And if you don't have an accurate supplement, then you're falsifying a document, okay, saying you're meeting their supplement requirements on your Medicaid reimbursement. That's a whole other thing for another day. And so, again, like I said, so we continue to get those. Well, if y'all use eSped or these different programs, well, it's a click of a button and they'll roll all the kids. So they'll have all their meetings in May. They'll have all their update ARD meetings in May, April, May, and then they'll roll all the kids and they'll just say, okay, roll it to the next school year. And then all of a sudden these supplements coming out because again, they updated them in April and May with the actual committees. And so we found several students that we were like, they're not even receiving special services at all. And so that's just another thing to look for. And then we talked about that. What does your drivers and monitors say? That's always really important. And I know y'all know this, but it's very important on what's really going on the bus they're on. We're very fortunate in our district. We've had a very supportive superintendent and school board, and we got where we can just pull cameras at the fly on our computer and watch them. And so we don't really have to interact with the driver that much. We just pull a camera and watch and see how the kid is doing, right? And so that's the great thing about technology nowadays. But make sure you're looking into that. Make sure you're looking to see what's really going on in there. And then is there accommodations that can be met on the regular trans bus? A lot of times you can. A lot of times you can meet those accommodations. We had one the other day and mom was just like, well, he gets really upset when he's really, squished into a tight environment. He's kind of claustrophobic. Okay, well, let's look. So we're a fast growth district. It's not uncommon for our buses to have 70-something students on them. And so let's look and see. Well, it just so happened to be where that student lived was kind of a far out route. And there was only like 40 kids in that bus, so he could have his own seat. And so when we did the research and took the time, instead of just saying, oh, you know what, you're right, let's put him on the sped trans bus. That was the easy answer, but we didn't do that. We said, well, let's talk about it, let's look into it. And so we did the same thing. We put a monitor on that bus. We put him over there with that driver, and he was great. We haven't had any problems with him. And mom called us, and mom was excited. I shouldn't say us, called transportation and was excited. And we moved him off. I mean, a lot of times, once they see it, it's kind of like relinquishing that purse string. Once they see, okay, they're going to be okay, we can do it. Let's see here. Okay, so knowing your laws for sped trans. So there needs to be someone in the transportation department that is well versed in, how the laws of transportation. If you don't know the laws of transportation, I highly recommend you start looking at that because I don't know all of the laws in the other states. We have a lot of people from Texas here, so I'll just speak on Texas. In Texas, we have tort laws. Texas tort laws immunes government entities from negligence and lots of things, but they don't when it's vehicular. So in all my Texas folks, they don't when it's vehicular. So if they can prove that you've done something with that yellow school bus that has neglected something or neglected their child, we are 100% liable. So make sure depending on what level of hierarchy you are within the district, if you're at that level, make sure you're familiar with your general counsel. We have a great attorney. I can pick up the phone anytime and call Ellen and be like, hey, Ellen, I just want to run this by you. That's what they're there for. Just make sure you have that open form of communication because, again, like I said, we're going to be great until it involves that yellow dog. We talked about parents, will bully their way into getting what they want. We talked about that. Make sure I'm not double repeating things. And then again, we talked about Munchausen syndrome. So Munchausen syndrome is self-diagnosing basically people and saying that they have a issue that they don't have or a disability that they don't have. So my child has special needs, and transportation will usually bend the rules because the laws are not clear enough. That's all goes back. And know your culture. So I didn't talk about this at all in any slide, but know your culture. In my district, I have been in several district guys, and I am by no means advocating, hey, let's go pull the rug out from underneath everybody for and say, well, we're being efficient. You got to know your culture. Like, do not set yourself up for failure. In my district, we're in a means of let's stay afloat financially. So we've got to do everything we can. We've got to unturn every page and uncover everything we can to try to help that budget. Okay. There's some district that's not going to be a thing they're going to want to touch. They're going to want to keep it that way. So just keep that in mind. reach out to other districts. So you're more than welcome to reach out to myself. If anybody wants to get into the nitty and gritty, I'll get you in contact with my special needs coordinator. She's really the nuts and bolts behind a lot of it. She's the one that actually goes with our special ed director. With my elevated role, I no longer really get into the weeds with that, but she goes and meets with all of the diags and the APOs and works with them on training. So we do training several times throughout the year. And we have documents too, and we can get those if you all want us to share them with you. That shows how they evaluate the student, right? So they have to meet all these areas, and then we can talk about special trans. And also remember, it's a slippery slope, guys. Remember that it is the committee's decision. So we have to groom and train our people to make solid decisions. We as administrators cannot come behind them and overrule their decision. That's not the way the law works with this. So it is a committee decision. So you've got to have a solid committee. So that's why I highly recommend on the front end, you have lots of good training with your people that are on those committees. You need some kind of gatekeeper. You need a gatekeeper that's going to keep that meeting under control. And I recommend you don't put that on your principal. So your principal is the public figurehead of the school, right? And so the public figurehead of the school, he or she needs to be the advocate for the school. He or she needs to be the advocate for the parents. And they need to feel like they're being listened to. So we want somebody on the more clerical side, like the diags. Those are the ones that we want to speak up and say, hey guys, we need to look through this first before we make that decision. I think it's important to have a correct relationship and allow parents to feel like they can go to the principal. If we're tasking the principal with these things, you've just cut that form of communication off, and now the parents don't feel like they can go to the principal. So just some tidbits of advice. And so, yeah, involving the SPED department. Okay. Connecting with the SPED department and trans. So combine your SPED department with the SPED supervisor of trans. If you're a small district and you don't have that, that'd be yourself. Again, just making sure you're heavily involved in that. They should have a strong bond with one another, like we kind of spoke about. Make sure that you guys are working together. A lot of times I've walked into districts and I just see like this divide, just like, well, we just wait for the paper. When the paper shows up, we do what it says. Well, that's not effective. That's not effective on any level, right? We need to have relationships. We need to be able to say, be respectful, but still question things, right? And say, hey, that doesn't really make sense, because again, it's all in the name of doing what's best for the kids and efficiency. Your ARD facilitators and diags should feel comfortable with asking the SPED supervisor questions involving the special transportation. And so that's very true. So I can say that our ARD facilitators and diags, they're the ones that we have kind of the forefront of this operation, and they reach out. So again, I only have one SPED coordinator. And like I said, we are a decently large district. We transport a lot of special trans students. And she can't be everywhere. She has some assistants underneath her, but she can't be everywhere. They can't be everywhere. It's just not humanly possible. And thank goodness we're almost fully staffed on drivers, or we'd all, they'd all be driving. And a lot of you guys don't have that situation. So we have to have that rapport where they can go, you know what? Because remember this, guys, we don't have to make a decision. So that's another thing that a lot of committees think. They think, oh, well, we got to get off the phone, or we got to get off the Zoom, or we got to finish this meeting and make a decision now. You don't have to. You don't have to make a decision now. You can recess those ARD meetings, those IEP meetings, and they can say, you know what, we're going to move forward with the behavior plan. We're going to move forward with the accommodations in the classroom. We're going to move forward with the pull-out plan, all the things that we go over in an IEP. We're going to move forward with all that, but we're going to hold tight on special trans until I can get some clarity on what we can and can't accommodate on the bus, right? And so if you charge your ARD facilitators and your diagnosticians with that, then you're empowering them. What I've noticed when we started doing that, guys, is we get less and less of them being recessed, because they make the decision up front, right? And they go, no, this is what we're going to do. But we got to get to that point. And to get to that point, it took us where we're going to have conversations. They'll recess. They'll call my SPED coordinator. SPED coordinator will walk them through what the best solution is. And you'll be surprised. A lot of it's not resistance. We've never been met with resistance because someone didn't want to work with us. They just don't understand, guys. They don't understand. They are in a position, most of them have come from a teaching world, and they just have come from a position where they just want to make everybody happy, and they don't understand the financial implications and what different things are going on. So I highly recommend you try to build a relationship with those folks. Merging the teams, that's what we just talked about. We talked about financial impact again. So like I said, sped buses cost more to operate. If you're in Texas, you're only getting 8 cents more a mile than you are on a big bus. And I don't know about you, but 8 cents more a mile ain't cutting the bill for a monitor and all the other things that we do. And in our district, yeah, we're very fortunate. Our sped buses are kind of pricey. You know, we have TVs on our sped buses because a lot of our students, because again, guys, our sped buses in our district, they truly need to be on that. They truly need that level of supervision and a level of assistance. So we have a lot of high level students on one bus. And that's because we've got all the students that are not high level, we've got them back onto the big bus. So what does that mean? It means we've got to make sure our buses are equipped to handle that. So in my district, I'm gonna put a little plug, is that, you know, we have TVs on our buses. And that's because we, you know, when your child's watching Blue's Clues or Clifford, they're tuned in, right? So all your autistic kids that have an issue, keep them focused, and they get off task and they get insecure when a lot of things are going on. Well, if they're focused on that TV screen, they're not realizing what's going on around them. Our discipline went way down with our high profile students. And so just different things like that. Where that comes in is our sped buses are expensive. That's just the reality of them. To equip them with the things that we expect in our district, it can be very expensive. Floating monitors to assist in transportation is budget friendly. So I know that's going to be a hard sell for some of y'all. If y'all have never had that, it's going to be a very hard sell for your CFOs, for your, you know, if you have an operations director, assistant superintendent, it's going to be a hard sell. But what I can tell you is that it will pay for itself. So you have a handful of floater monitors. Monitors do not cost that much financially. Okay. You get your rock stars. You know, we offer ours 8 hours a day to the ones that are the floaters. That's the benefit of being a floater monitors. They get 8 hours a day. Most of all of our routes are 8 hours across the district anyway, but they're guaranteed 8 hours as a floater monitor. And so they move around. They're not always on a bus transitioning a sped student. They could just be on a bus that has behavior problems. We all have behavior problem buses. If you don't, I'd like to know where you live. And so, you know, we all have them. And so, you know, you can use so many different tools for that. And use it for so many different tools and, you know, be able to make a lot of progress for not a huge financial implication. For example, like us, we've cut bus routes this year because we've taken students and put them onto the big bus. Well, that savings alone right there paid for all those monitors, okay? And you're also saving fuel because your big bus is going in every neighborhood, okay? You know that every bus, you know, you have a big bus going in every single neighborhood already. So if we can, you know, reduce the number of sped buses, we have traipsing around the district doing door-to-door service. Another thing that I will talk about that's not on here though is preparing your kids to make that transition. And what I mean by that is the sped bus is probably picking them at their front door because again, we just do what we've always done, right? That's what we do in public ed. We do what we've always done forever and ever and ever and ever. We don't do that in Cleveland. We have lots of kids that we recognize are getting there. They're getting there. They're almost ready to transition. And when they're almost ready to transition, we move the bus stop. So the sped bus picks up at what we call a cluster stop. So a community stop. Every district calls them something different, but we don't stop at their front door anymore. That way, we're going to slowly transition that child. We're going to move them from their front door to the community bus stop where everybody else stands. Okay. We're going to offset the times to make sure they're not there with the other students, right? So we're going to make sure that that bus comes last or comes first to make sure that they're not there together. Again, though, however, you're allowing them to get 1 foot in front of the other, right? Well, it's on 1 foot in front of the other. You allow them to do that. You let that ride for a couple months. Then you move them to the big bus. Well, it's not really a big shock. It's just a longer bus and a different bus driver, and they just get on the bigger bus. And they get on the bigger bus, they sit down, the monitor's there to check on them, and then within a few months, you're taking the monitor requirement off. Nobody even realizes it, right? So we do ours. Every district has different practices and standards. As long as you're meeting the minimum law, you're good. And so in our district, when we're transitioning those children, when we get to the point where we're like, we've had several successful weeks with that child, we'll reach out to the parent and we'll say, are you okay with having an amended ART? So you can amend the ART at any time, the IEP. We amend it. We remove just that service. We send it home. Mom or dad signs it. Boom, we're done, right? We're not going to take that monitor off right away. We're going to take them off for a couple days, put them back on. Again, it's effort on our part, but it's what's best for the kid. And again, then it saves us money at the end of the day. We talked about door-to-door service. You can meet the IEP on the regular ed bus 99% of the time. Medicaid funding. This was a conversation we had at a conference over the summer that a panel that I was on. If you don't get Medicaid funding, you need to get Medicaid funding. I couldn't believe the number of people that didn't raise their hand when I asked if they were getting Medicaid funding. Maybe you don't know you're getting Medicaid funding. You should know. So to get Medicaid funding, you're reporting that they rode morning and afternoon, right? And then you should be doing what's the name of it? Studies of time or time studies. You should be getting every now and then your special needs department or your Medicaid facilitator should be reaching out saying, hey, bring this, bring Cody in, what were you doing at this day at this time, right? All they're doing is just to check and make sure that that driver was who was driving that bus. And 99% of the time, the answer is driving my bus route. That's what I was doing. Okay. And then you submit that, and that's just part of Medicaid's auditing. It's kind of silly, but it's what they do. Also, if you're not doing that, I highly recommend you're doing that. Get with your special needs department if you don't know anything about that, because if they should be getting the data from you, because just because they rode the bus doesn't mean they went to school, or just because they went to school, it means they rode the bus, right? So we have lots of kids that have rode the bus and then go and check out of school. And one time we were audited, it wasn't a problem, our data is correct, and we actually were having to show them that no, the child rode the bus. Like, we have RFID, every kid scans on and off. Little tidbit with that is some of our students are not cognitively able to maintain a lanyard with that, because it's just too much for them. It's too much. They're all over the place with it, or they want to chew on it or whatever. So in our district, we keep a big circle binder clip that has another tag for every child. And the bus driver will do it for those students that are just not cognitively able to do that, to make sure we get to capture that funding. So in our district, we capture our Medicaid reports 100% through our student tracking monitoring system. We happen to use Smart Tag. They work with our provider, when we literally everything, the drivers electronically sign on their tablet. They do it all. No, there's no more paperwork. We just review it. My special need coordinator hits submit. It goes off into our accounting system that handles the reimbursements, and then that's that. Like I said, and then we just randomly get audited. So if you need help getting that set up, let us know. I'll be glad to get you in contact with her. Life skill students, that's another thing. We have a lot of misconceptions in the world about life skill students. Life skill students do not need to be on a special trans bus unless they truly need to be. There are different levels of life skill students, right? There are life skill students that are starting out. There's life skill students that are further along. There's life skill students that are on the 21 program, right? 18 plus program. And so just so you know, you do not have to provide transportation for 18 plus program. That is solely up to your district. We choose to do it because, again, it's what we feel is best for the child. If we're going to educate them, we're going to provide that transportation for them. That's just the stance our district and school board takes. But by law, you do not have to. Once they've hit that 18, that full year of 18, when they come back and they're 19, 20, 21, that's on the parent. Also keep in mind your transition. So what I mean by transition is, do you have work-based learning programs? Okay. Work-based learning programs means, we take them out to the grocery store, we take them out to the cafeteria, we take them out to different places and let them work during the day, right? So that's typically your life skills program kids. You're getting them ready for the real world. So we always had this misconception in this district that, well, they're going to work-based learning, and we typically provide that on a special trans bus. We only provide it on a special trans bus because it's 3 or 4 kids. It doesn't make sense to roll a huge bus for 3 or 4 kids. That's the only reason why. So then what we found was we got our facilitators saying, oh yeah, they're special trans. Why are they special trans? Well, because they go to HEB and work during the day, and the special ed bus comes and gets them. That's just a bus. And so that's where you have to work with the misconceptions. Guys, that's just a bus. That child is perfectly fine being on the big bus every other time. Another misconception too is field trips. Okay. We don't roll any special needs buses in my district on a field trip unless it is a wheelchair bound student and we need a lift. It doesn't matter whether their IEP says that they're on a special trans bus. Their IEP is never going to say special trans bus. Their IEP is going to say group supervision, safety securement seat, AC. Well, you can meet all those needs on your big bus. And so I had to get that changed in my district too. We're not rolling special trans buses to go to the zoo unless they physically need it because of a physical impairment needing the wheelchair lift, right? Other than that, we're rolling big buses, and you're going to have 2 or 3 teachers on there. So guess what? Those 2 or 3 teachers are going to be the group supervision. So you've met their IEP again. So it's just changing the way people think about things. Because when I got here, we were rolling all kind of buses on field trips and spending all this money. And I was like, guys, why are we running a special ed bus for 3 or 4 kids and all their peers are on the big bus? That is like the epitome of most restrictive environment, right? And I mean, so if a parent really knew their stuff, they can come after the district. And that's one thing you need to think about and look at is if a parent really knows their environment and knows their rights, we're by law required to give the least restrictive environment. It's not a district choice. It's not a committee choice. It's a law. And so that's always a tool you got in the back of your pocket. Okay. The drivers. So helping the regular ed driver with the transitioning of the student, have the sped supervisors involved with the regular ed driver to help. We talked about that. Keep updates with the student. We talked about that already. We talked about all that. Kind of got ahead of myself. All that can be provided. We talked about all that. So make sure that your diags and art facilities are making the changes, because the last thing you want to do is transition them to the big bus. Mom's agreed, everything's hunky-dory, and the paperwork hadn't been done, and something slip up, right? So don't make sure we actually have the paperwork in hand. We have a rule in our district, we don't do anything until we have that paperwork. I can tell you most districts have the good old boy system. Oh, well, they called over here and said that they're going to do it, so we're going to make it happen for them. That's eventually going to bite you. Okay, so just be careful, especially when you're in a larger district, that's eventually going to catch up to you. I'm not going down that path. In our district, we have a rule that says 72 business hours from the day we receive the supplement is how long we expect it to get implemented. Now, we make every effort for 24 hours, right, guys? But if we're having to change a route, change this, change that, I'm not going to change a route and implement a new route within 24 hours and affect all these other kids. That's not fair to them. We've got to give them time to adjust their schedule. And that is very true too. So parents will not know that they have the opportunity. I don't know how many parents we've met with there's been times that I've come to meetings because the principal is like, oh, she's going to lose her mind. She's going to lose her mind. I need you here. And I'm like, okay, I'll come meet, it's not a problem, cool, collected. And mom was like, well, I didn't know he could ride the big bus. I'm like, well, what do you mean you didn't know? Well, he just always has. I mean, I don't know how many parents weren't. I mean, don't get me wrong. We got those parents that, are hell-bent on their child being on the special trans bus because they think it's a higher level of service, right? But there's a whole lot of them that also are fine with it, and they just don't think about it. Like I said, we've had 100% success with students transitioning. We actually haven't had anybody go back yet. I think we will. I'm gonna be honest with you. It's reality, right? There's gonna be a few kids that probably have to go back. But right now we haven't had any issues. The parents have adapted well. We've had a couple that, got a little high strung, and we had to bring them back down to reality, and the other thing, guys, is one thing biggest advocate I can tell you about or advocate for you is just don't take the bait. Just don't take the bait. I sit in meetings all the time and I'm being told I'm going to be sued and I'm going to be this and I'll be that. Okay, I understand. If I wouldn't be working here if I had $1 for every time I was told I was going to be sued. It's just, we have to take our stance. We're going to know our stuff, let them do their homework. That's their prerogative. Have a strong support system so the parents and drivers are happy with the transition. That's very true. You got to have the right people at the table, guys. That's the bottom line. If you're a small district and it's you, if you're not a small district, you've got to have buy-in by everybody. Again, I'm very lucky, but I can also tell you this is like 2 years in the making. We've been having conversations. We've been having meetings. I go to all the principal meetings. I say, hey, guys, this is coming down the pipe. This is what we're doing. This is the direction we're going. It doesn't happen overnight. So don't think you're going to implement something and boom like that. No, it's been a good 2 years, and we've finally seen the fruits of our labor. And that's another thing too. So encourage your SPED department to have the parents reach out to transportation. So, I'm very fortunate. I have a very, very good SPED coordinator. She'll sit on that phone for 30 minutes reassuring mama that it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. And if it's not okay, we're going to be there to make sure it's okay. And if we need to revert back, we're going to revert right back. But we're always going to take care of your baby, right? And so having that person that can sit there and reassuring, you guys know what I'm talking about. Y'all have that one person in the office that anybody can say anything and everybody's okay with it, right? That's not me, guys. I can recognize that. I'm not the one. I don't need to be delivering messages about sensitive topics because I'm just like, okay, well, either we're doing it or we're not. And so, make sure you know that person, know who they are, and have them help you with that. And that is really the end of our presentation. If you have questions, I see there's a few on here. We'll be glad to go through it. I know I talked very fast. That is one of my downfalls. Do you have any special training for monitors? Yeah, David. We're basically neighboring districts. If you want to reach out to Megan has material on that, and we do have specific training. So in our district is a little unique. We have removed special transportation from the regular ed handbook. So we have two handbooks. Well, we actually have three handbooks, but we have two handbooks: a regular ed driver handbook and a special ed driver / monitor handbook. And then we have a field trip driver handbook. And so the reason for that is, again, like you said, a specific training. And we all have our safety meetings, right? And then it turns into well, but how come they can do it, but we can't do it? The things that we allow on a special trans bus are very different than what we allow on the big bus. Like in our district, we wait 3 minutes for a special trans student. We don't wait at the big bus. Either you're on time or we're out of there. And so things like that. Yeah. So reach out to Megan. She'll be glad to provide that to you. And then Miss Rios also is my safety and training coordinator, and she helps facilitate that with Megan. But we do monthly trainings with our staff. Yeah, David, just reach out to me and I'll get with you, Megan. Get you with Megan.
Cody, I don't know. Are you seeing the Q&A? There is a question in the Q&A box. I can read it. It says, are you willing to share the checklist form that is used to determine if they are on special transport? Also, do you have the drivers and bus attendants complete an observation form for their input at the time of the student's annual and reevaluation meetings?
Okay, so great question. I just pulled up the Q&A. I learned something new. I didn't even know there's a Q&A option. I was reading the chat. So you're always learning. Okay, so yes, we can show a checklist. So shoot me an email. You got my email on that slide right there, or you can pull me up on the district website. We'll be glad to share a checklist with you. As far as the drivers and attendants observation, we don't have a form per se, ma'am, but what we do is we email. So we're really big on email. We are paperless in the district as far as transportation goes. So we email the driver and monitor and say, hey, what's the update on the student? So that's kind of our record keeping. We have that to back it up down the road. We don't have a specific form. That's actually not a bad idea. I always say we got a form for that. We actually don't. So that's a really good idea. But we have not, because we don't check with everybody. It's only the ones that we're transitioning, right? We don't check with every driver on how someone's doing unless we're thinking that we're going to be transitioning them. What program is this? We are interested. I don't know what the question is.
Well, it could be, one of the things that I wanted to bring up, and I think this is a good opportunity. You said several times that there's training requirements, obviously, for a lot of the topics and things that you talked about. And that's one of the things we do here at Infinity Workforce Solutions is we have a learning management system that schools use, especially in their pupil transportation departments. And I know that's something you all use there at Cleveland, Cody. And if people are interested and you would like to learn a little bit more about what we do here at Infinity Workforce Solutions, by all means, you can answer yes to the little poll question there, and somebody will reach out and talk to you a little bit about what it is that we do. But it does seem, Cody, like there's a significant need for some regular ongoing training as you bring in new bus drivers, new monitors, new people. There's a lot to know here. I've come to see that this morning. You have a lot of knowledge, and that needs to be passed on to people. So I think training is one of the ways you can do that, obviously.
Right. And for y'all, Steve, I'll definitely give y'all a plug. So we're a user of Infinity, have been, I think this is my third district now. that I've implemented Infinity in. And one thing I really like about Infinity is it's very customizable, guys. Like, so I know that, this is not necessarily a sales pitch, but I'll do it really quick, just because I'm a very forward person. I can tell you right now, those of you that know me, Mr. Baxter's on here. I'm sure he would attest to that. If I didn't agree with Sudden, I'd have told y'all. I wouldn't be here today if I didn't believe in their product. And so, you can set up, and we do this. We set up monthly trainings, and so you can set up monthly trainings that are specific to your different groups of employees. So you can set up meetings for your special needs drivers that are separate from your regular ed drivers, and you just send it out. So how we used to do it, as we used to just send it out to them, and we paid everybody an hour. And so we made sure that the curriculum that we were giving them through Infinity tells you how long it is. Add a few little bit of, few minutes in there for somebody having to read the questions. You can set the questions up. You can set your scores. You can make them rewatch the video and redo the test. If they don't get a certain percentage, we pick 80%, because we use that down the road. So no, we had this training with you, let's refresh it. And we have all those records to keep. And so we just send it out. We pay them an hour, and we say, okay, this is like 40 minutes of content. We're going to pay you an hour. You do it on your own time. We're paying you for today, and it needs to be done by Friday. So if it's Monday, we'd roll it out on Monday, because make sure with wage and labor law, guys, make sure you're keeping it within the same pay week. You can't, even though, you just don't want to go down that slippery slope. Make sure that it's in the same pay week. You're telling them I'm paying you on Monday for an hour, but you got to have it done by the end of the week, because, if you get into next week and then they worked a field trip and now that's overtime, and you just don't want to go down that path. And so, it's a very good tool because they loved it. They can do it on their phone. It's user friendly for the phone, for the tablet. So we didn't have the ability to have a bunch of computers available. So that's how we used to do it. Now we do have more computers available now. We actually have a safety and training room. And so that's kind of changed the way we do things. But it is a great program for that. I can tell you, we solely use it for all of our ELDT. We have it for all of our ELDT. That's the big ticket we use it for, but we use it for retraining, guys, for everything. So in our district, we have an ARC matrix, accident review committee, and every accident review is going to result in retraining, and every retraining is going to result in you taking something on Infinity. That's just the way we do it. That's the way our handbook is written. Our handbook is written around Infinity. I'll give Infinity another little plug really quickly. Is that you can upload your own content. So if you want to do your beginning of the year, invocation that you do, and you go over your handbook and stuff, you could record that, create your own questions, upload it, have them upload it, and every new employee that year will get to see the same thing everybody saw at the beginning of the school year. We haven't done that, but I know you can. I think that's pretty cool. I'm very blessed to have the staff where I have a safety and training coordinator, and she has staff underneath her that everybody that walks through this door, even if you left, thought the grass was greener, and you decide to come back, you still go through full training. So for example, if you have your CDL, we still make everybody go through Infinity. That's just what we do. That's CYA for me in the school district. Mm-hmm. So I don't care if you have your CDL, because below Joe school district might have been acceptable for you to drive crazy over there, but it ain't here. And so we're going to have that record that, no, you've went through the whole thing. Now we're going to pay them for all that time. And the one thing I can tell you on the training side, guys, just my years of experience, is never be so desperate to get a driver behind the wheel that you forfeit training. It will come back to haunt you. You're going to have an accident. You're going to have something, and you're not going to have the proper documentation that you wish you had. The other question I saw in here was about AC. So I made a comment, and you're exactly right. You can have all this AC buses if they all work. In our district, we have a standard. If the AC goes down, the bus goes down. I understand that every district does not have this ability to have that standard. That's what happens when you get to a fleet, right? So my spare buses have air conditioning. And so that just goes back to a standard, guys. It took us a while to get there. When I walked in the door 4 years ago, we were not there, guys. It takes time. Yeah. So our spare buses, they are started every 2 days. So we have what we call cover drivers. They're our full-time subs. They do whatever we need them to do, drive whatever route we need them to drive. They are assigned spare buses. And so, if there's something out there, we got a system for it. And that's how you keep a good operation. And so they know what spares are theirs. They have a universal key that they keep on their key ring. They go out there, They come in, we don't micromanage it. We say, you need to do these buses this many times within a week, right? So it's every 2 days, they need to have those buses cranked, pre-tripped them, drive them up the highway, drive them back down the highway, checking the AC, checking everything. So when the bus does need to be used, it's ready to go. A spare bus is no good if it hadn't been touched in 30 days when you need it, right? And so that's how we're able to accommodate that. So yes, all of our buses, the AC does work. And if it doesn't, you get a spare that has AC that works. The other program, what program? I'm guessing you're talking about when I was talking about Medicaid reimbursement. Is the only thing I can think you're talking about.
Actually, Cody, Danielle put down a little bit later. She's talking about the program about checking the attendance on the bus and electronically submitting the attendance.
Yeah, so she's kind of bouncing off of my Medicaid comments. So we use Smart Tag. We use Smart Tag is our student monitoring system. I know I said tracking earlier. I'll give you another plug. Do not tell your community that it's student tracking. Nobody likes their child tracked. They like their children monitored. This is 2024. And so, you know, just a little PR there for you. But we use Smart Tag. We use Transfinder for our routing. We use Smart Tag for pretty much everything else when it comes to interaction with the bus drivers. We have some back-end softwares that we use. We have a customer service software. So when anybody calls my transportation department, it gets put into a customer service software. So I can run reports as to what driver, what route. We can see all these things. We don't pass calls through to supervisors. A supervisor will be back in contact with you. It's kind of like a call center. And so it works really well. And then let's see, yes. And so like I said, so yeah, those are the softwares we use. We use Transpar for our customer service software. If you're interested, it's a cool software for that, for tracking your customer service needs. But Smart Tag does the rest of it. There's lots of them out there, guys. I just have had Smart Tag for a long time. We have 100% ridership. No tag, no ride. We don't allow students to ride home in the afternoon if they don't have a tag, except for our special needs kiddos who can't cognitively handle it. And again, the driver has that on the ring. Okay. And so like I said, so that does all of our state reporting. In the state of Texas, you know, we got to do state reporting and do capture of ridership. And so it does it for us. And so we love it. We do our bus referrals through there. We do our and DOT inspections are done through there. Everything's done through there. When they want to write their bus up for the shop, it's done on the tablet in Smart Tag, and we have a API set up to where it pushes into our software in the shop and automatically creates a ticket for the mechanic that there's an issue on that bus. So if you want to know more about that, feel free to, I'll get you contact for that.
Very good.
I think
Cody, I don't see any other questions. And we're really close to our hour limit on the program. So first of all, I want to thank you very much for some really good information. You covered a lot of topics, but I think everybody got some good ideas from you, things that you've implemented in your district there. And you know, if it sounds like you're very willing to take questions from somebody if they think of something after the program. So reach out to Cody by email. If you would rather send something to me, I'll be happy to try to answer it. If I can't, I know somebody that can. So once again, Cody, thank you very much. I appreciate it. And thanks to all of you that attended. Certainly appreciate your time and lots of good questions. So thank you all very much. And with that, Cody, thank you, sir. Appreciate it. And we'll let everybody get back to work and take care of these kids out there. Thank you, Cody. Appreciate it, sir.